My best friend hit on my husband. My own father helped her. I lost my best friend, my father, and almost my marriage. My name is Natalie and I'm 32 years old. I've been married to Garrett for 6 years. We have a 4-year-old daughter named Lily. And up until 3 months ago, I thought I had the perfect life. I need to tell you what happened because I still can't believe it myself. Some nights I wake up at 3:00 in the morning and wonder if it was all just a nightmare, but it wasn't. It was real, every single horrible moment of it. The first time I noticed something was off was on a Tuesday evening. Garrett came home late from work, which wasn't unusual. He's a software engineer and sometimes gets caught up in debugging code, or whatever it is he does. But that night, he seemed distant. Not in a bad way, just distracted. "Hey, how was your day?" I asked him as he walked through the door. "Fine," he said. He didn't look at me when he said it. I was in the kitchen making dinner. Lily was in the living room watching cartoons. Everything felt normal, except for this weird tension I couldn't quite place. "Ronnie called me today," I said, stirring the pasta sauce. "Veronica, Ronnie was my best friend since college. We'd been inseparable for over a decade. She wants to come over this weekend for brunch." Garrett froze. It was just for a second, but I noticed he was taking off his jacket, and his hands just stopped moving. "That's nice," he said finally. "You okay with that?" I asked. "Yeah, of course. Why wouldn't I be?" I shrugged it off. Maybe I was imagining things. That Saturday, Ronnie showed up at our house wearing this dress. It wasn't inappropriate exactly, but it was more than what you'd normally wear to a casual brunch with your best friend and her family. It was tight and red and cut lower than usual. "You look amazing," I told her, hugging her at the door. "Thanks, babe," she said. But she wasn't looking at me. She was looking past me into the house. Garrett came down the stairs right then. He'd just gotten out of the shower and was wearing jeans and a plain white t-shirt. Nothing special, but the way Ronnie looked at him made my stomach twist. "Hey, Garrett," she said, her voice different, softer. "Hey, Ronnie," he replied, barely glancing at her. I told myself I was being paranoid. Ronnie had been my best friend forever. She'd been a bridesmaid at my wedding. She was Lily's godmother. There was no way. But then things kept happening, little things at first. She started texting Garrett directly instead of going through me. She'd ask him for tech help with her computer, even though she'd never needed help before. She started showing up at our house more often, always with some excuse. She needed to borrow something. She was in the neighborhood. She wanted to see Lily. And Garrett never seemed uncomfortable about it. He'd help her with whatever she needed. Chat with her, laugh at her jokes. He wasn't flirting back or anything, but he also wasn't shutting her down. The worst part was that I couldn't say anything. What would I say? "Hey, I think my best friend is into you." I had no proof. Just this gut feeling that something was wrong. Then my father got involved. My dad, Richard, has always been protective of me. Maybe overly so. He never really liked Garrett. He thought I married too young, that I should have focused on my career instead of settling down. He worked in finance and always pushed me to be ambitious, competitive. Garrett's steady, calm personality annoyed him, but what I didn't know was that my father and Ronnie had gotten close. It started innocently enough. I think Ronnie worked in marketing at the same firm, where my father was a senior partner. She'd gotten the job about 2 years ago, and I was happy for her. I thought it was nice that two people I loved got to work together. I didn't know they'd been having lunch together, regular lunches, just the two of them. I didn't know my father had been telling Ronnie things about my marriage, private things, things I'd told him in confidence during a rough patch Garrett and I went through last year. I found out about all of this later, but I'm getting ahead of myself. The breaking point came on a Thursday night in October. Garrett and I had planned a date night. My mom was watching Lily. We were going to this Italian restaurant we loved, and I was excited. We hadn't been out alone together in weeks. But then Garrett got a call at the last minute. Some emergency at work. He had to go into the office. I'm so sorry, he said, looking genuinely upset. I'll make it up to you. I promise. It's fine, I said, trying not to show my disappointment. Work is work. He kissed me and left. I called my mom and told her we'd canceled, so she brought Lily home early. I was sitting on the couch in my sweatpants, eating ice cream, and watching a cooking show, when my phone buzzed. It was a text from an unknown number. You should know, what's really going on? My heart started pounding. Who is this? I typed back. The response came with a photo attached. I opened it. It was Garrett and Ronnie. They were at a restaurant. Not just any restaurant, the Italian place we were supposed to go to. They were sitting across from each other, and Ronnie was laughing, her hand on the table close to his. I couldn't breathe. This was tonight. The next text read, "This isn't the first time. I thought you should know. Who is this?" I typed again, my hands shaking. "A friend, check your husband's phone." I sat there for what felt like hours, but was probably only minutes. My mind was racing. This couldn't be real. There had to be an explanation, but I kept looking at that photo. The way Ronnie was leaning toward him, the intimate setting, the fact that he'd lied to me about work. When Garrett got home an hour later, I was waiting in the kitchen. "Hey," he said, smiling. Then he saw my face. "What's wrong?" I held up my phone, showing him the photo. The color drained from his face. "Natalie, I can explain." "Explain what?" My voice was shaking. "Explain why you lied to me. Explain why you're having secret dinners with my best friend." "It's not what it looks like," he said, stepping toward me. I stepped back. "Then what is it?" He ran his hand through his hair, a gesture he always made when he was stressed. "Ronnie asked me to meet her. She said she needed advice about something important. I didn't want to worry you." "Advice about what?" "About your father." I froze. "What about my father?" Garrett looked at me and I saw something in his eyes I'd never seen before. Fear. "She told me that your father has been encouraging her to pursue me, to break up our marriage." The room spun. "That's insane," I whispered. "My father wouldn't. He wouldn't do that." "I didn't believe it either at first," Garrett said. "But tonight, she showed me messages. Natalie, your father has been telling her that you and I aren't happy, that you're too good for me, that you deserve better. He's been planting ideas in her head about us being together." I sat down heavily in one of the kitchen chairs. "I don't understand." "She's confused," Garrett continued. "She thinks she has feelings for me, but I think your father manipulated her into thinking that. He's been working on her for months from what she told me. Taking her to lunch, being a mentor figure, then slowly convincing her that she'd be better for me than you are." "But why would he do that?" Garrett knelt down in front of me, taking my hands. "Because he never thought I was good enough for you, and I think he saw an opportunity to prove it." I pulled my hands away. "So you've been meeting with Ronnie to what?" "Talk her out of it, to understand what was happening." He said, "The first time she came to me was 3 weeks ago. She showed up at my office and told me she had feelings for me. I was shocked. I told her nothing could ever happen, that I love you, that she needed to get these ideas out of her head." "You didn't tell me." "I should have," he admitted. "I know I should have, but I thought I could handle it. I thought if I just made it clear that I wasn't interested, she'd stop." But she kept pursuing it. She kept saying your father told her it was okay, that you'd understand eventually, that you weren't really in love with me anymore. "I never said that." "I know, but she believed it because your father said it." I felt sick. "Show me the messages." Garrett pulled out his phone and handed it to me. I scrolled through his conversation with Ronnie. Text after text of her confessing feelings, him gently but firmly shutting her down every time. Her insisting, him trying to be kind, but clear. Then there were screenshots. She sent him messages between her and my father. "Natalie married too young, she doesn't know What she's missing Garrett is holding her back from her potential. You and Garrett would actually make sense together. You both ambitious. Don T feel guilty sometimes. The heart wants what it wants. I read message after message. My father, my own father, orchestrating this, encouraging my best friend to destroy my marriage. I met with her tonight to tell her one final time that this needs to stop, Garrett said quietly. I told her she needs to talk to a therapist about this because these feelings aren't real. They're planted. And I told her that if she doesn't stop, I'm going to have to tell you everything, and we'll have to cut her out of our lives completely. I looked up at him. Why didn't you just tell me weeks ago? Because I knew how much it would hurt you, he said, his eyes getting wet. I knew it would destroy your friendship with Ronnie and your relationship with your father. I thought if I could just handle it quietly, you wouldn't have to go through that pain. You should have told me. I know. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I sat there holding his phone trying to process everything. My best friend, my father, both of them betraying me in different ways. Who sent me the photo? I asked. I don't know, Garrett said. But I think we need to find out. The next day, I called Ronnie. Hey babe, she answered, her voice bright and cheerful like nothing was wrong. We need to talk, I said. In person now. There was a pause. Is everything okay? Come to my house. 1 hour. I hung up. When Ronnie arrived, I answered the door, but didn't hug her like I normally would. Her smile faded when she saw my expression. Come in, I said. We sat in the living room. Lily was at preschool. Garrett was at work. It was just us. I know, I said simply. Her face went pale. Now what? About your feelings for Garrett. About the messages. About my father. I know everything. She opened her mouth, then closed it. Then tears started streaming down her face. Natalie, I'm so sorry, she sobbed. I never meant for this to happen. I don't know what's wrong with me. How long? I asked, my voice cold. I don't know. Maybe 6 months. Your father started talking to me about my love life at work. I just broken up with someone and he was being so nice and supportive. Then he started talking about you and Garrett, about how he worried you weren't happy. I am happy. I know that now. She cried, but he was so convincing. He made it sound like you'd confided in him, that the marriage was struggling, that you felt trapped, that you married too young and didn't know who you were anymore. I never said any of that. I know, but I believed him. And then he started pointing out how much Garrett and I have in common, how we'd be good together. And somehow I started believing that too. I started looking at Garrett differently. I felt nauseous. You've been my best friend for over 10 years. I know. I hate myself. I've been so confused and messed up. Every time I'd feel guilty. Your father would tell me that real love sometimes requires sacrifice, that sometimes friendships end so that people can find their true happiness. Did you ever sleep with Garrett? No, she said immediately. God, no. He never touched me. He was always completely faithful to you. Even when I tried, she stopped. When you tried what? She looked down. One time I kissed him. About 2 weeks ago, he immediately pulled away and told me to leave. He was so angry, so disgusted. That's when I realized how far I'd let this go. I stood up. You need to leave. Natalie, please get out of my house. She stood crying harder. I am getting help. I called a therapist. I know I need to work through whatever is broken in me that let this happen. I don't care. I want you out of my life. Please don't do this. Our friendship ended the moment you decided to try to seduce my husband. I said. I don't know who you are anymore. The Ronnie I knew would never do this. She left, still crying. After she was gone, I sat in the silence of my house and cried too. Not for her. For the friendship I'd lost, for the betrayal, but I wasn't done. I still had to confront my father. I drove to his office that afternoon. I didn't call ahead. I just showed up and told his assistant I needed to see him immediately. When I walked into his office, he looked up from his computer and smiled. Natalie, what a nice surprise. I was just thinking about how, could you, I said, closing the door behind me. His smile faded. How could I? What? Don't play dumb. Ronnie, Garrett, the message is trying to destroy my marriage. He leaned back in his chair. I see she told you. Garrett told me. Why would you do this? My father sighed like I was being unreasonable. Because you deserve better than him. That's not your decision. To make you my daughter, of course. It's my decision to care about whether you're wasting your life. I'm not wasting my life. I love Garrett. We have a beautiful daughter. We're happy. You settled, he said, standing up. You had so much potential, Natalie. You were top of your class. You could have gone to law school, business school, anything. Instead, you became a stay-at-home mother, married to a man who will never be more than middle management. I felt like he'd slapped me. Is that what this is about? You're embarrassed by my choices. I'm disappointed, he said. I raised you to be more than this. You raised me to be like you. I shot back. Ambitious and ruthless and incapable of just being happy with a simple good life. But I'm not you, Dad. I never wanted to be you. Keep your voice down, he said, glancing at the door. No, you tried to manipulate my best friend into sleeping with my husband. You wanted my marriage to fall apart so you could what? Prove you were right. Feel vindicated. I wanted you to wake up, he said, to see that there's more to life than playing house. I have a family, I have a husband who loves me, and a daughter who needs me. That's not playing, that's my life, and it's a good life, it's a small life. The words hung between us. Then I guess I like small, I said quietly. Because it's mine and it's real, which is more than I can say about whatever this is. I gestured around his office. The expensive furniture, the view of the city, the awards on the wall. You're living in this hollow space, pretending you're successful because you have money and status. But you're so empty inside that you had to try to destroy my happiness just to feel something. Natalie, I don't want to see you anymore, I said. You not welcome in my home. You not welcome around Lily until you get help and figure out why you thought this was acceptable. You not part of my life. You overreacting. Am I? You psychologically manipulated a young woman into thinking she should pursue a married man. You planted lies and doubts. You actively worked to destroy your own daughter's marriage. Is there any part of that seems reasonable to you? He didn't answer. I am done, I said. Don't contact me. I left his office. My hands were shaking as I drove home. When I got there, Garrett was already back with Lily. He must have left work early. How did it go? He asked quietly while Lily played with her toys. I told him not to contact me again. Garrett pulled me into a hug. I broke down crying against his chest. I'm so sorry, he whispered. I'm so sorry you're going through this. Did you know? I asked, pulling back to look at him. Did you know it was my father? Not at first, he said. Ronnie didn't tell me until recently. She was trying to protect him, I think. Or maybe she was embarrassed, but when she finally showed me the messages, I was horrified. You should have told me. I know. I made the wrong call. I thought I was protecting you, but I was just making it worse. No more secrets, I said. No more secrets, he agreed. The next few weeks were brutal. My mother called me, begging me to talk to my father. She didn't know the whole story at first. But when I told her, she went quiet. He did what? She asked, her voice small. I explained everything. The messages, the manipulation, the encouragement for Ronnie to pursue Garrett. I need to call you back, my mother said, and hung up. An hour later, she called again. I confronted him, she said. He admitted to everything. Natalie, I'm so sorry. I had no idea he was capable of something like this. What did he say? He tried to justify it. Said he was looking out for you, but I told him what he did was sick, that he needs professional help. Is he going to get it? I don't know, my mother said. Honestly, your father doesn't think he did anything wrong. He thinks he was trying to help you see the truth about your marriage. There is no truth to see. Garrett and I are fine. We were fine before all this and will be fine after. I know, sweetheart. I know. My mother started coming to visit without my father. She'd bring Lily little gifts and apologize over and over for not knowing what he was doing. You couldn't have known. I told her. He hid it well. I should have seen the signs. She said, he's been obsessed with your life choices for years. I just didn't think he'd take it this far. Ronnie tried to reach out several times, texts, calls, emails. I blocked her on everything. Then one day, about a month after everything came out, I got a letter in the mail, handwritten, from Ronnie. I almost threw it away without reading it, but something made me open it. Dear Natalie, it began. I know you probably don't want to hear from me, and I understand, but I need you to know some things. I've been in therapy 3 times a week since our last conversation. My therapist helped me understand that what your father did was a form of grooming and manipulation. He took advantage of my vulnerability after my breakup and slowly planted ideas that grew into something I couldn't control. That doesn't excuse what I did. I still made choices. I still pursued Garrett even when part of me knew it was wrong. But understanding the manipulation helps me understand how I got here. I lost my best friend. I deserve to. I am not asking for forgiveness. I just wanted you to know that I am getting help and I am learning why I was susceptible to this kind of manipulation in the first place. I hope you and Garrett are okay. I hope Lily is thriving. I think about you all every day. I am sorry. I am so sorry. Ronnie. I read the letter 3 times. Then I put it in a drawer and tried not to think about it, but it nagged at me. 2 months after everything exploded, something else happened that changed everything again. I got a call from an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. Natalie, a woman's voice said, yes, my name is Jenna. I work at your father's firm. We've never met, but I think we need to talk. My stomach dropped. About what? About what your father did to you, and what he did to me. We agreed to meet at a coffee shop the next day. Jenna was younger than me. Maybe 28 or 29. She was put together and professional, but I could see the nervousness in her eyes. Thank you for meeting me, she said as we sat down with our coffees. What is this about? I asked. I heard about what happened with you and Veronica. Word travels in the office. I'm friends with Veronica's assistant. Okay. Your father did the same thing to me, she said quietly. 3 years ago. I felt cold. What do you mean? I was dating someone, a good guy. We'd been together for 2 years and were talking about getting engaged. Your father was my mentor at the firm. He started taking me to lunch, giving me career advice, being this supportive father figure. She paused, taking a shaky breath. Then he started asking about my relationship, pointing out ways my boyfriend wasn't ambitious enough, wasn't sophisticated enough. He introduced me to someone else at the firm, a partner, someone closer to your father's world. And he encouraged me to spend time with this man, to get to know him better. Oh my God, I ended up having an affair. Jenna continued, tears forming in her eyes. I destroyed my relationship, and you know what happened after that. Your father lost interest in mentoring me. The partner he introduced me to wasn't actually interested in a relationship. It was like I was a pawn in some game I didn't understand. Why are you telling me this? Because I need you to know that what he did to Veronica wasn't a one-time thing. This is a pattern. He does this. I don't know why. Maybe he likes playing God with people's relationships. Maybe he gets some sick satisfaction from it, but he's done it before, and if we don't do something, he'll do it again. I sat back in my chair processing this. Have you told anyone? Who would I tell? He's a senior partner. I'm nobody. I have no proof of anything. He was always careful. Everything was suggestions, encouragement. Nothing I could take to HR. What do you want me to do? I don't know, Jenna said. I just thought you should know. I thought maybe if there are multiple people coming forward, maybe someone will finally listen. After meeting with Jenna, I started asking around discreetly through mutual connections, and I found 2 more women. Both had similar stories, both had been young women at my father's firm, both had been in relationships that my father had systematically worked to destroy while positioning them toward men he deemed more suitable. It was a pattern, a sick, twisted pattern of manipulation. I gathered everything. The women agreed to write statements. I compiled the messages I had from Ronnie. I built a case. Then I went to my mother. "Mom, I need to show you something," I said when I visited her alone. My father was at work. I laid it all out for her. Not just what he did to Ronnie and me, but the pattern, the other women, the years of manipulation. My mother sat at her kitchen table reading through everything, her face getting paler and paler. "I don't understand," she whispered when she finished. "Why would he do this?" "I think he needs control," I said. "I think he has this idea of what people's lives should look like. And when they don't conform to his vision, he manipulates them into making different choices. He probably tells himself he's helping. He needs help." My mother said, "Real help. This is sociopathic behavior." "I know. What are you going to do with all this?" "I'm going to HR at his firm," I said. "And if they don't take it seriously, I'm going to a lawyer." My mother nodded slowly. "I'll support you. Whatever you need to do." "What about you and Dad?" She looked at me with tears in her eyes. "I don't know, who I've been married to all these years. I thought I knew him, but this," she gestured to the papers on the table. "This isn't the man I thought he was." The HR complaint caused an internal investigation at my father's firm. The 4 women, including Ronnie, gave formal statements. The firm took it seriously because the pattern was undeniable. My father was put on administrative leave pending the investigation. He called me. I didn't answer. He showed up at my house. I didn't let him in. He sent letters. I didn't read them. Finally, 3 months after the investigation started, my mother called me. "He's been asked to resign," she said. "They're giving him the option to step down quietly, or face formal charges of creating a hostile work environment, and engaging in psychological manipulation of junior employees." "What's he going to do?" "He's going to resign," she said. "His lawyer advised it. Otherwise, this could get very public and very ugly." "Good." There was a long pause. "I'm divorcing him," my mother said quietly. "Mom, I can't stay with him, Natalie. Not after learning what he's capable of. I've been doing my own therapy, and my therapist helped me see that there have been signs of this controlling behavior throughout our marriage. I just never recognized them because I was so used to his way of thinking. I am sorry, Don T. Be sorry. You gave me the push I needed to see the truth. He's not well, Natalie." "I don't think he ever was." The divorce proceedings revealed more. My mother's lawyer dug into my father's past and found evidence of similar manipulative behaviors in his previous relationships, a pattern going back decades. My father was diagnosed by multiple psychologists as having narcissistic personality disorder with controlling and manipulative tendencies. He was ordered into mandatory therapy as part of my mother's divorce settlement. I don't know if he's actually going. I don't have contact with him anymore. But here's the thing that still gets me. About 6 months after everything came out, I got a package in the mail. It was from Ronnie. Inside was a letter and a small box. The letter said, "Natalie, I know I have no right to send you anything, but I found something while going through old things, and I thought you should have it. It's from before everything got twisted and broken, when we were just us." Inside the box was a friendship bracelet, one I'd made for Ronnie when we were in college. She'd worn it for years before it finally broke. She'd kept it all this time. I held that bracelet and cried. Not because I wanted to forgive her. Not because I wanted our friendship back, but because I was mourning what we'd had, what my father had destroyed. A few weeks after receiving the bracelet, I was putting Lily to bed when she asked me a question. "Mommy, why doesn't Grandpa Richard come over anymore?" I sat on the edge of her bed, choosing my words carefully. "Sometimes grown-ups make choices that hurt other people," I said. And when that happens, we need to take time apart to heal. Did Grandpa hurt you? Yes, sweetie. He did. I'm sorry, Mommy, Lily said, hugging me. It's not your fault, baby. Sometimes people we love disappoint us. But that's why it's so important to always be honest and kind so we don't hurt the people we care about. She nodded seriously like she understood even though she was only 4. After I tucked her in, I went downstairs where Garrett was working on his laptop. How is she? He asked. She asked about my father. What did you tell her? The truth in a way she could understand. Garrett closed his laptop and pulled me down next to him on the couch. How are you doing? He asked. Really, I am okay, I said. And I meant it. Some days are harder than others, but I'm okay. You know none of this was your fault, right? I know. And you know that your father's issues have nothing to do with you or your choices. I'm learning that. I said in therapy. I'd started seeing a therapist right after everything happened. She'd been helping me work through the betrayal, the manipulation, the loss of relationships I'd thought were solid. I'm proud of you, Garrett said. For standing up to him, for protecting yourself and our family. I'm proud of us, I said, for making it through this. We're stronger than I thought we were, he said, kissing my forehead. And we were. The whole nightmare had almost broken us. But instead, it made us more solid, more aware of what we had and how precious it was. I think that's what my father never understood. He was so focused on what he thought success looked like, money, status, achievement, that he couldn't see the value in what I had built, a loving partnership, a happy child, a peaceful life. He thought I'd settled, but I chose. And there's a difference. Last month, I saw Ronnie from a distance at a grocery store. She was with someone, a woman I didn't recognize. They were laughing about something and Ronnie looked lighter than I'd seen her in years. She didn't see me. I made sure of that. I turned down a different aisle and finished my shopping. Part of me wondered if I should feel something seeing her, anger maybe, or sadness, but mostly I just felt nothing. She was a stranger now. Someone who used to be in my life but wasn't anymore. Maybe that's what closure feels like. Not forgiveness or reconciliation, just nothing. My mother is doing well. She sold the house she shared with my father and moved into a smaller place across town. She's dating someone new, a retired teacher who volunteers at the library. He's kind and soft-spoken and nothing like my father. I spent 35 years trying to please a man who couldn't be pleased. She told me over coffee one day. I'm not doing that again. Good, I said. You saved me. You know, she said, by standing up to him, by showing me it was possible to say no to him. You saved yourself, Mom. I just helped you see what was already there. As for my father, I heard through the grapevine that he's living in a condo downtown, still going through court-mandated therapy. My mother's divorce lawyer made sure he couldn't contest the settlement, and she got most of their assets. Sometimes I wonder if he's changed, if he's developed any insight into his behavior, if he regrets what he did, but mostly I don't think about him at all. The anonymous person who sent me that first photo, I still don't know who it was. Garrett and I have theories. Maybe it was someone from my father's firm, who knew what was happening and wanted to help. Maybe it was Jenna trying to warn me before coming forward herself. Maybe it was someone else we don't even know about. In the end, it doesn't matter. Whoever they were, they saved my marriage. They gave me the information I needed to protect myself and my family. I'm grateful for that, even if I'll never know who to thank. Last week, Garrett and I renewed our vows. Nothing big or fancy. Just us and Lily and my mother, and a few close friends in our backyard. We wrote our own vows this time. I promise to always choose you, I said to Garrett as we stood under a simple arch covered in flowers. Not because you're perfect, but because you're real, because you see me and love me, and stand with me even when things get hard. I promise to trust you with my truth, and to never let anyone come between what we've built. Garrett's eyes were wet when he said his vows. I promise to protect us, he said, not just from external threats, but from internal ones, too. I promise to communicate, even when it's uncomfortable, to tell you the truth, even when I think I'm protecting you by staying quiet. I promise to never take for granted what we have and to fight for us, every single day. Lily was our ring bearer. She took her job very seriously, walking slowly down the makeshift aisle with the rings on a little pillow. After the ceremony, my mother hugged me tight. "You did good, sweetie," she whispered. "You built something real, something that lasts." "Thanks, Mom." That night, after everyone went home, and Lily was asleep, Garrett and I sat on our back porch with glasses of wine. "Do you ever regret it?" he asked. "Marrying me?" "Never," I said without hesitation. "Do you?" "Never," he echoed. "Even with everything that happened, I'd choose this life every time." "Me too." We sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the stars. "I wonder what your father thinks now," Garrett said eventually. "If he sees what he lost." "I don't think he's capable of seeing it," I said. "People like him, they don't process loss the same way we do. They just move on to the next thing they can control." "That's sad." "It is." I agreed. "But it's not my problem anymore." And it wasn't. For the first time in my life, I felt truly free from my father's judgment, from his expectations, from his need to control every aspect of my life. He tried to destroy my marriage to prove he was right about me making the wrong choice. Instead, he destroyed his own life. Lost his daughter, his wife, his career, his reputation. And I'm still here, still married to the man I love. Still raising our daughter, still building this small, beautiful life that he could never understand. That's the real poetic justice. I think he wanted me to fail so he could swoop in and save me, so he could prove that his way was the right way, but I didn't need saving. I never did. I just needed him to leave me alone and let me live. Now he has no choice and I am finally free. This morning, Lily asked me if I was happy. "The happiest I've ever been," I told her. "Why?" she asked with the simple curiosity of a child. "Because I have everything I need," I said. "And I know exactly who I am." She smiled and went back to her coloring book, and I realized it was true. My father spent my whole life trying to shape me into his image of what I should be, trying to control my choices, my relationships, my future. He failed. I am exactly who I chose to be, and that's enough. More than enough. It's everything.